Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into something pretty interesting, Waaree Energies Ltd.
Yeah.
They're a big player in the renewable energy market in India, and they just came out with their Q2 FY25 financial results. So we're going to be trying to break down all the info that they've provided us through their official stock exchange filings, their investor presentation, and their auditor's reports. So by the end of this,
Yeah.
know not only how Waaree performed
Mhm.
this last quarter, but also hopefully you'll get a better understanding of the trends shaping the entire renewable energy sector.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about Wary is that they're not just like a solar panel manufacturer anymore. They're moving into these new and exciting fields like green hydrogen production. So it really shows that they're on the cutting edge of where this whole sector is headed.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. The big news with Wary is that they're having a really great year. Revenues are up 3% year over year, reaching a total of 71,599 million rupees. For the first half of FY25,
Yeah, and they're not just doing well on revenue. Their profitability is also looking really strong. Their profit after tax is up a huge 18% year over year to hit 7,768 million rupees for the first half of the year.
so what's the secret here? Are they just selling a ton more solar panels, or is there something else?
Well, they actually have a really diversified product portfolio, so they're not just relying on one product for all their growth. Yes, solar panels are still a big part of their business, but they're also doing some really interesting things with green hydrogen production.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about green hydrogen lately. What makes it so special?
Well, green hydrogen is often called the fuel of the future
Yeah.
because it's produced using renewable energy sources, so it doesn't create any harmful emissions.
So it's kind of a clean alternative to fossil fuels.
Exactly.
So where does Wary fit into all of this?
Well, recently they were awarded a production-linked incentives, or a PLI, from the Indian government to build a huge 300-megawatt electrolyzer manufacturing facility, and electrolyzers are a key component in producing green hydrogen.
So it sounds like they're trying to get a head start in this new green hydrogen race.
Definitely. This incentive will give them a real advantage. It shows that they're serious about the technology and that the government is supporting them.
That's interesting. It seems like Wary is really setting themselves up to be a leader in this energy transition. But how big of a deal is this whole energy transition? Are we really moving away from fossil fuels that quickly?
Oh, absolutely. You just have to look at the numbers. Global solar PV capacity grew 40% in 2023 alone. That's not just some fad, that's a sign of a real shift in how we power the world.
Yeah, I've noticed it too, even just in my own neighborhood. More and more people are getting solar panels on their roofs.
It's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
More electric vehicles on the roads, more wind farms. Governments are setting really ambitious targets for renewable energy. I think we're really at a tipping point right now.
Speaking of ambitious targets, what's happening in India? I know they've been making big commitments to renewable energy.
Yeah. India is aiming for 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030. So that's a huge opportunity for companies like Wary.
But are those just like goals, or are they actually doing something to make it happen?
They are. They've implemented policies like the PM Kusum scheme and the PM Suryagar Muft Bijli Yojana. Both of those are initiatives that are designed to encourage solar adoption.
So it sounds like Wary is in a really good position.
Right.
With all this momentum behind renewable energy, no wonder they're doing so well.
Yeah, and they're not stopping there. They have some pretty ambitious expansion plans in the works.
They want to expand even more.
Exactly. They're currently working on a 5.4 gigawatt cell manufacturing facility in Shikli, a 1.6 gigawatt module manufacturing facility in the US. And get this, they're planning an even bigger 6 gigawatt integrated facility in Odisha.
Whoa, those are some massive numbers. I'm starting to understand why they're such a major player in this industry.
And it gets even more interesting because they're not just focusing on solar panels, they're branching out into other areas of the energy transition as well.
So they're expanding into these other areas of the energy transition. Like, what else are they getting into?
Well, we already talked about green hydrogen a little bit, but they're also looking at renewable power infrastructure projects. So, instead of just making the solar panels, they might actually build and own entire solar farms or even wind farms.
So they'd go from being a component supplier
Yeah,
to a full-on energy provider.
yeah, exactly. That's a
Yep.
pretty big change. And then they're also looking into something called battery energy storage systems, or BS for short.
Okay. I've heard of BS, but I don't really get it. Isn't the problem with solar and wind energy that they come and go? Like, what happens when the sun's not shining or the wind's not blowing?
Yeah, that's exactly the problem that BSS tries to solve. Think of it like a giant battery for the whole electric grid. When the sun's out and the solar panels are making more power than we need, all that extra energy can get stored in the BS, and then later, When the sun goes down or the wind dies down, we can use that energy to keep things running.
So BSS kind of smooths everything out,
Yeah.
makes renewable energy more reliable.
Exactly. It's a really important part of making renewable energy work long term, and where he's getting in on the ground floor.
It all sounds really impressive. Now, and speaking of impressive, didn't Waaree just go public?
They did. They got listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange back in October.
Perfect timing. Ride that renewable energy wave. Okay, but for someone who's not really a financial expert, what should I be looking for in their financials?
Well, one key metric is their EBITDA margin. That's a way to measure profitability. And theirs is really healthy at 17.51% for the first half of FY25. They also have a good amount of cash on hand, about 4,901.07 million rupees as of the end of September. And probably most importantly, they have a huge order book, something like 20 gigawatts worth of projects lined up.
Wow, 20 gigawatts. It's a lot of power. They seem to be doing incredibly well. Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've seen Waaree's performance. We've talked about this global shift towards renewable energy. But what does it all mean for the average person, like me?
That's the big question, isn't it? Waaree's success is a good example of what's happening on a larger scale. As renewables get cheaper and more common, it's going to affect us all, from energy bills to the kinds of jobs that are available.
So you're saying even if I don't work in renewable energy or have solar panels on my roof, I'll still be affected by this transition?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If more and more of our electricity is coming from renewables, that could mean lower energy bills for everyone. Businesses will have to change how they do things. Maybe we'll even see brand new industries pop up, like around green hydrogen. It's a ripple effect that will touch everyone.
So by looking at Waaree, we're getting a glimpse into the future.
I think so. And it's a future that has a lot of potential. But of course, there will be challenges too. We've been talking about Waaree in India, but this is a global story. Different countries are going to approach renewable energy differently. There are still some technological problems to figure out, and we need to make sure that this transition is fair and benefits everyone.
Right. It's not all going to be easy.
No, not at all. Like, how do we make sure that developing countries can use these new technologies? How do we make sure that people don't lose their jobs? These are all things we need to be thinking about.
It's a lot to think about. I mean, we started with one company's financial results, and now we're talking about a global revolution in energy.
Yeah, that's the whole idea with these deep dives, right? You start with something specific and see where it takes you. We started with Waaree, but now we're talking about the future of energy and the environment and even society as a whole.
Yeah, I feel like I've learned so much, but I also have a lot more questions now. Like, where do we go from here? What can we as individuals actually do to be a part of all this?
That's the great thing about this. There are so many ways to get involved. Yeah, it can seem a little overwhelming, but every little bit helps.
Like, give me some examples. What are some things people can actually do?
Well, first, you can look at your own energy use. Are there ways you can use less energy at home or at work? You know, could you switch to more efficient appliances or LED light bulbs?
Those are things I've been trying to do.
Good. And have you thought about switching to a renewable energy provider for your electricity? A lot of places offer green energy options now. It might cost a bit more, but you'd be directly supporting renewable energy.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. What about transportation? That's a big source of emissions, right?
For sure. If you're thinking about getting a new car, you could think about an electric vehicle or a hybrid. And of course, public transportation and biking are always good too.
Okay, those are all things individuals can do. But what about bigger changes? Can we influence policy or push for systemic change?
Of course. You can contact your elected officials and tell them you support policies that promote renewable energy and fight climate change. You can join organizations that are working on these issues.
Sometimes it feels like individual actions don't really matter. But if enough people make changes, it can really add up.
Exactly. It's like a snowball effect. The more people who get involved, the bigger it gets. And the faster we can transition to a clean energy future.
This deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. Waaree's story is inspiring, but it's also a call to action.
I agree. And remember, it's not just about the planet. It's about us too. A clean energy future means cleaner air, healthier communities, and a stronger economy.
So to wrap things up, I want to encourage everyone listening to take what we've discussed and explore further. Do your own research, ask questions, and find ways to get involved in this energy transition.
Yeah, stay curious, stay informed, and let's keep learning together.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exciting exploration of the world around us.